So many games that I want to play on the channel. I wish I had some sort of guidance to help me decide. Well, that's a start. Greetings fellow flatcaps and welcome to the Spectrum on this cold February morning. Sport is often cited as a hard subject to portray correctly in video games, whether it's a ball being kicked by delicate flowers, boxing on ice, or a violent soap opera. Its jump to video games is often messy, lazy, boring, or just flat out crap, especially in the modern times. Now, to be fair, there are some games that pull it off while going for realism, like Pro Evo Soccer, and some games that do it well while being inaccurate and over the top, like Red Card and Sega Soccer Slam. But, what if I told you that a sports game inspired one of the big granddaddies of video gaming history? Our next stop in our 1001 long game list is a defining title in gaming history, and without it, gaming might not have been what it is today. Pong, the game inspired by table tennis, was an arcade game released in 1972 by Atari. Fun fact, Atari were hit with a lawsuit by Magnavox after Pong's creator, Alan Alcorn, based it off an electronic ping pong game that came with the Magnavox Odyssey, the very first video game home console. Alcorn made the game as a training exercise while at Atari. However, the Atari founders were so impressed by the quality of his work that they decided to manufacture it and make it one of their titles. Wow, a game like that must be super amazing. Let's take a look, shall we? Yeah. I joke, of course. Despite its simplicity and looking like nothing by today's standards, it was a massive success in the 70s. So successful that the first machine they placed in the bar to test out the game with the audiences broke because the coin slot was overloaded with quarters. It soon found its way into pretty much every arcade, eventually making the leap to home consoles, and many sequels and recreations were later published. As mentioned before, the 70s version won't be anything amazing by today's standards, so to look at its earliest iterations won't take very long. Which is why we're also going to be seeing how it's evolved over time and how it's still inspiring some game makers to this day. So let's go back to where it all began. 1972. The very first Pong that you could find in bars and arcades. While I wasn't able to play the actual version from 72, I was able to find a faithful recreation with slightly enhanced graphics, which is a weird thing to say about a game that's nothing but white lines in a square. We all know how this works. You pick a side and you go up and down knocking the square back and forth until you reach a specified score. As simple as it got. Now while I may be using a mouse to control my paddle, the original controls had a dial that you had to twist. Having used one of these in real life, I can confirm, odd as it sounds, that there is more intensity when using the actual dial. It takes some getting used to and you could easily overshoot the ball square if you're not trying. I can imagine in a bar you could also increase the tension by placing bets on it. Betting money, a drink, a punch to the face, so on. So where do you go from here? How do you improve on a game like this? He asked as though it was a difficult question. Well, you could do what the sequel did in 1973 and add 2 extra paddles. Wow! Where you have a better chance to hit the square ball but get frustrated by having to operate 2 at once with individual hands, so you just resort back to using 1. How about the 1976 Super Pong console, which came with 4 different modes of play? Original, Double, Tiny Slot, and Steve McQueen Prisoner of War mode. How about this one? Pong, but with headache-inducing rainbows. And Quadra Pong? 4-player Pong. Play till you run out of lives. Maybe the world's first battle royale game. Throughout the 70s, Pong was remade, republished, and reimagined in many different ways, many different times. It even helped develop the breakout game. As we saw with the Oregon Trail though, technological advancements play a huge part in the game's future, and Pong is no exception. So let's take a look at how it changed as the times did. Of the many versions of Pong there are, one of them stuck out to me for the name alone. Fast forward to 1995, where we find Mortal Pong. Developed by Cheesy Software.
Cheesy?
Completely unedited, by the way. There's little information about this game online, and I can't tell if this was a sold product or a fan game, but whatever it is, can confirm that it's weird. Before you get to play, you need to sort out your options. Number of balls? I assume that's how many lives you get. Release rate? Not a clue. But I'll leave it as it is. And one player. Then you need to choose a difficulty resembled by opponents. Sloth? Slow as dirt, even you could beat him. Hey, fuck you. Sponge? A slow but steady opponent. Frank? A good player with good eye and good moves. And finally...
I am Evil Homer! I am Evil Homer!
Opponent chosen, the single round game begins. Holy shit, that's a lot of balls! As you can see, there is no way I'm going to be able to handle all of these. It's less about skill and more about luck, as you need to hope your opponent lets more of them slip by than you do. For each ball that passes, your life bar decreases. Whoever loses all their health first becomes death and burns away in hellfire. Then it's back to the main menu. Let's fiddle with some options now and see if we can make it a bit more skill based. Let's see, change the release rate, make it a singular ball, and let's try out Sponge. Yeah, this is going to take way too long. 99 balls and a release rate of 1. Oh boy, this is going to be messy. Oh, for fuck's sake, I'm watching them all drift by me and there's nothing I can do about it. It's like watching yourself being face-fucked by a facehugger. Meanwhile, evil Homer over there is having no issue whatsoever. Overall, this is a short time killer game that you can make as hard or as dull as you want. Now that I think about it though, by the time this came out, it's been 23 years since the original Pong came out and its format has stayed mostly the same, but still got a ton of popularity. Yet, there was still more room for it to evolve, and in 1999, it changed again. Enter the PlayStation 1. Pong makes the jump to 3D. And it sucks! At its core, it's a party game. It features a pseudo-story mode where you need to travel between numerous zones and defeat the AI in Pong battles, each of the stages having a gimmick. Now, as a multiplayer game, I imagine it's great, but as a solo experience, fuck this shit! To start with the positive though, the game does have a personality to it. It's all over the place with its hub and level designs, which in turn offers a variety of looks to keep the game interesting and varied. Even the Pong panels themselves show charm as they are animated like stop-motion cartoons. They even sound like one too. In particular, Morph having a breakdown. Not all the graphics are good though, as seen in level 1 where there are demon penguins. The gameplay itself, however, is for the most part fine. It plays and feels like Pong, but with a twist. In level 1, you play regular Pong until one of the demon penguins is hit, where it shits out a new snowball? I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty sure the polar ice caps weren't created because a bunch of penguins had severe diarrhea for a long ass time. The first to 10 points wins, and it's pretty chaotic with the amount of balls on screen at once. Not only that, but some levels also feature pickups that can be collected if you hit them with a ball. You just need to remember to catch the pickup as it comes towards you, otherwise you won't receive it. What they do depends on the level. Here, it makes a seal, or as I like to call them, puppers of the sea, come and help you out by knocking back any balls you may miss for a limited time. What type of pickup shows up is also dependent on the version of the level as well. Choosing a level offers 3 different versions to play, but you need to win the previous one in order to unlock the next one. In Polar Power, the power-up splits the arena in 2 and forces you to battle yourself. Oh, my greatest enemy. We meet again, me. Not all the levels feature pickups. Some of them just have a gimmick that you control, like being able to handle 2 paddles at once. There are, however, some issues with the game that make it a frustrating experience. First off, you want motion sickness? The game can provide. The camera semi-rotates around the map at all times, which not only makes you slightly ill, but also makes your job of hitting the ball back slightly harder, as it does fuck with your judgment a fair amount. The paddle itself doesn't help either. In older versions of the game, there was a trick of moving into the ball to increase its speed or alter its angle. Here, that tactic can't be used as the ball will just go wherever it pleases regardless how you try and alter it. The paddle itself moves quickly and is slippery, meaning a lot of the time you over or undershoot your movement as the ball slips past you. Meanwhile, artificial arseface over there has no problems keeping up with you or the ball, and I'm pretty sure it cheats. Allow me to present the evidence. Exhibit A. Input reading. The AI can stay on your arse perfectly no matter how much you try to trick them. Exhibit B. Faulty hit detection. Affects both player and AI, but seems to benefit the AI more than you. Exhibit C. This one's a maybe. The AI can aim. In this level, your panel catches the ball and you can fire it back. The AI is clearly seen here turning their panel to aim the ball. I attempted to do the same, but could not achieve this no matter how many buttons or what combination of them I pressed. It's not just the AI that will piss you off. Sometimes there are solo stages where the objective may differ from scoring a goal. In the circus level, for instance, you need to knock the correct coloured balls into the correct coloured container by tilting the table. Too often do you find yourself pissed off because you were sure that you got the right ball in the hole, but it didn't because the shoddy game is shoddy. The list goes on, but these issues really make the game a frustration to play alone. Whether or not it's an improvement or not will be down to you, but honestly, I don't like this due to its difficulty coming from its faults rather than thought out challenges. Exit? Yes, fucking please. So, we're almost at the end of the video now. There are still a few games we could look at, but we're going to look at one more in particular. And this one only came out 2 years ago. So, from 1999, we are fast forwarding to 2020. We've seen basic Pong. We've seen slightly different Pong. We've seen colourful Pong. We've seen Battle Royale Pong. We've seen Balls Galore Pong. And we've seen Party Game Pong. Take 5 seconds to guess where we're going to go next. Did you guess Legend of Zelda style dungeon crawling? If so, then the chances are you've at least heard of the final game we're looking at. Enter developer Checkered Ink Ltd, who works with Atari to publish their game, Pong Quest. Released in 2020, 48 years after the original Pong, Pong Quest takes the series in a unique and, quite frankly, charming direction. You play as a champion of King Pong, who is given a quest to retrieve 4 magical orbs, hidden in the castle's dungeons, to open the scary door. The burning question is, how, in the everlasting fuck, do you make a dungeon crawler out of Pong? Short answer is by splitting it up into 2 modes, exploration and Pong-based combat. The game starts with a short, easy to follow tutorial of the combat mechanics. Using the arrow keys to move up and down, you knock the ball back and forth. Each time you hit the ball or you miss it, you lose health. The fight continues until one player reaches critical condition and then the opponent must get it past them to win the fight. In order to gain the upper hand, you can use balls that have special abilities linked to them. These can be found while exploring, as spoils from a fight, or during the actual fights themselves. To put it scientifically, there is a fuck ton of balls to find out there, each doing something different, and here are some examples. The potion ball you use to restore your health, buff balls to do more damage to your opponent, zip balls to make a ball go faster, wall balls which make a wall of bricks in front of you, and breakout ball which is the wall ball but on steroids. After the tutorial, you enter the story. King Pong recruits you to help him with his problem and asks his captain to help train you by running you through the training dungeon. From this cutscene alone, you know this is a game made with a sense of humour. Little jokes, silly visuals and comical noises at least will get an appreciative smirk out of you. I'm just happy that they went for something with a sense of self-aware humour and not make a serious, gritty adaptation by writing a shit story and hiring actors for the sake of recognisable names and non-actors for the sake of sex appeal. The humour is also reflected in the music because, as stupid as it sounds, it does get stuck in your head. king orders you to make yourself a sharp-dressed paddle. Then you're introduced to the exploration part of the game. As you can imagine, the way it works is you go from room to room in the dungeon, potentially finding puzzles to complete for money, treasure containing money and balls, and of course, enemies. When you encounter a foe, a fight starts, and on victory, you gain loot consisting of cosmetics, balls, and money. You also gain XP, and leveling up grants you one of 3 bonuses to choose from that change every time. The dungeons aren't complex in their design. Your goal is basically to just keep finding the exits until you reach the final floor where the boss resides. Find the boss key on an enemy, and then open their door to defeat the boss and complete the dungeon. It sounds easy, but there is a decent amount of challenge that awaits you. An example of this is the healing factor. Healing can only be done in fights, so if you're running low on health, you need to weigh the risk of failure against the enemy you face versus the reward of being able to come out of it with more health than when you went in. It's one you actually consider quite a lot, and in my time playing it for an hour, there was only 2 types of balls that could heal you. Assuming, of course, you can actually find these balls to heal you in the first place. I was in bad shape when going in to fight the final boss of the second dungeon, and I can tell you, it was a tense experience knowing that all it took was to make a few mistakes and I'd lose. Made even worse by the fact that there he was, sat on 300 health and 3 layers of bricks he could summon whenever he used his breakout ball. I won only because I got a lucky shot. Despite the anxiety I was getting from that fight, it was really enjoyable, and I'm thinking of doing this as a stream at some point. It's quite a unique little game with a nice charm to it, and I can tell that the developers certainly had fun making this one. Should you be interested with this game, it is currently available on Steam, and Switch, and PS4 and Xbox One. And that is just a part of Pong's history. So, did I like it? The answer is a yes, but Pong's simple mechanics are enjoyable and it's possible to get a decent amount of time out of it. But, in order for that to happen, I feel like it would help to have an outside source of some kind to add to the fun. A nostalgia itch, a bet, a need to pass the time, etc, etc. Whatever the reason, there is entertainment and skill-based gameplay to be had here, despite the deceptively simple design. So overall, yes, I did like Pong. What about you though? What does Pong mean to you? Is there anything I missed out? Is there any games that I didn't mention? What is it about Pong that interests you? Do let yourselves be heard in the comments. Well, until then, thanks everyone for watching, and remember, you're always welcome at the Spectrum.